How's it going, guys? This is Trey Bell, and this is Arcane Frequencies. And tonight we're going to be reviewing the album Thunder Perfect Mind by Current 93. As you know, I've just been doing all these Current 93 videos since the beginning of this channel started in a bulk. And I'm just going to be doing them in 5, so this is going to be the 4th installment, and then once we get to the last installment, I'm probably going to switch to another band after that. Probably give you a little surprise video after the 5th video. 6th video is going to be a little bit special. But from that point on, overall, it's just been fun giving you guys all the different aspects of Current 93's music at this point. And it's also just been helpful for me to now that I'm starting this YouTube channel, I've been able to get more comfortable speaking, being concise about my words and what I'm trying to convey when it comes to this particular band, because I did do this also so it forces me to actually indulge myself more into their music and actually be more acquainted with it, because honestly, I feel like when you're documenting your love for music, specifically a band that you're really interested in, and it helps cement that more. And that's why I really enjoy these music reviews. So with that said, we are going to get on with this album review. So, like I said in the last Current 93 album review, when it came to All the Pretty Little Horses, this is kind of somewhat a continuation of that. Well, not a continuation, because technically this album came out before All the Pretty Little Horses. So, but this was like still in the vein of like their 90s music. Like once they started making more neo folk music, it was a little less abrasive than, of course, the earlier output, the more ambient and industrial. But now that I feel like they found a way to officially solidify their neo folk sound, this is definitely all the aspects of the things that you probably would hear in All the Pretty Little Horses and anything within the 90s that I feel like that they made. There's a lot of acoustics, a lot of woodwind instruments being used. It sounds so medieval, but again, not in a way that's like as dark as Swastikas for Naughty, but more in a way that it really does feel like it's just a soundtrack to like a medieval based movie that it's PG-13. You can watch with any of your family. That's literally what their music is sounding like at this point. Yes, in a certain way, I guess you could say it still is slightly strange, but based off most of the discography that I've heard, this is still in the category of their more normal sounding albums. And this is definitely a very monumental album in the fact that like this is an hour long album. This is it takes a while to get through, and on top of that, they have so many different versions of this album, mainly just multiple deluxe versions where it's just B-sides or rehashments of songs, or maybe early ideas of songs, specifically like the one A Layman to Susan. At the end of the album, you get to the second disc that showcases all the extra stuff, and there's actually 2 versions of The Layman of Susan, and I think they're even called 2 different things still within that name category. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting how they still want to hold on to a lot of their throwaways and give them a home too, or even an alternative home. Like I even said, when it comes to Swastikas for Naughty, you have Crooked Crosses for Nodding God, which is pretty much Swastikas for Naughty. In my opinion, the B-sides are just an alternative version of like that same album with a little differences. So, when it comes to what I'm hearing a lot of Thunder Perfect Mind, well, first, let me give you an overview of what the concept of Thunder Perfect Mind even means. So, it's based off of, like, I guess an exonerary poem or something. The Thunder Perfect Mind is an exonerary poem discovered among the Gnostic manuscript in the Nag Hammadi library in 1945. So this has something to do with a very specific topic, and actually I looked it up, and I kind of like what this concept, the Thunder Perfect Mind, actually represents. And it has a duality complex, which makes sense, especially knowing these are like Gnostic viewpoints. I feel like Gnostic viewpoints are usually kind of neutral on how they view life, of like, whatever. I don't know what something is if I don't like, if I don't see it, but at the same time I can't prove that it doesn't exist. That's pretty much the Gnostic viewpoint, primarily when it comes to their idea of God. Like, more the Gnosticism is based primarily in the people saying, they don't have enough knowledge to know if God exists or not. So they're open to the fact of it, but at the same time, like, they don't really know. And I do kind of actually like that viewpoint. I grew up Christian myself, but also I do feel like there is an importance in, like, when you don't know something, it's probably better to be in a place of like just saying, like, I don't know, I'm open to it, but until like something can prove me otherwise, then I'll just kind of keep it neutral at the moment. And for me, that's not technically God, but for me, that's just more just interpersonal things that comes on in the world. And at that point, we're probably diving more into topics of Taoism or Stoicism. So, but that's a different conversation. But with the Thunder Perfect Mind, this concept pretty much states, "For I am knowledge and ignorance. I am shame and boldness. I am shameless. I am ashamed. I am strength and I am fear. I am more and peace." The Thunder Perfect Mind. Yeah, and it's pretty plain and simple. It really just seems like it's stating the concept of the yin and yang, and you kind of need both in order to kind of fully know what life is really about. So, with that said, we kind of have the ground basis of what this whole entire album is about. It is, and honestly, again, like with most of David Tibet's output with Current 93, it does, I would say this definitely is another good solid album, but it also represents a more total whole of what I feel like the main concept of Current 93 is trying to get across. And that is kind of a state of duality. Like, we're both good and bad at the same time. And, like, yeah, this album definitely feels like it's showcasing that. Again, like, I feel like it is another example of David Tibet learning how to merge his dark sound and his, new soft neo-folk sound, put them together and just make it something, that's a little bit more accessible. Just like I said when it came to All the Pretty Little Horses. But if anything, this is actually a more earlier example of that concept, with the band's, change in temperament and sound throughout their, long career. And so, that being said, yeah, this is a really great album too. Like, honestly, I feel like a lot of their output is great, even when it comes to like stuff I probably don't even like as much. Like, just the whole concept of why David Tibet does his music in this way is amazing. And yeah, I do feel like this particular album feels like it can accommodate a motion picture. It's just it's very medieval, and just again to some of the songs. And I definitely am not gonna get into all of the songs because there's too many songs just to get into. But the ones I want to highlight are, and also just to state, the beginning of this album also is a good tone setter because it's not as abrasive as most of their other projects. Like, it actually doesn't get abrasive until the end, but even then it's still pretty tamed. But the beginning of this album, actually, when I first started listening to it, actually didn't I didn't really pay attention to it that much because it wasn't grabbing my attention. But when because I actually just listened to it before I just did this. I'm doing this review because I just want to refresh my mind, and I realized I really like how they made a more lighter approach with the beginning of this album. The 4 songs are actually they're pretty consistent with that traditional neo-folk theme, and there's not really a lot to say about them. Like, they're pretty much straightforward. Like, David Tibet is still talking about his concepts of esotericness and hermeticism, and actually I would say a lot more biblical statements. There's a lot of references to Babylon, Christ, and just pretty much all concepts of the Bible that I feel like are easy to understand, and most people probably would go to the Bible for. You will hear from the Bible, just the basic aspects of it. But he really does prop Jesus Christ a lot up in this particular album, and I do feel like when it comes to their new folk sound, especially within this era of their music, there is more appreciation for Christianity definitely in a more balanced sense, where it's a little less scary, where I'm like, all right, yeah, you can see this dude is not really trying to convey overt evil like you heard in Dog's Blood Rising. But yeah, Thunder Perfect Mind is just a really monumental album. Like, the whole entirety of this specific version of this album is 2 hours long. So yeah, it's kind of a commitment if you want to get through the whole entire, concept of this album. But again, like I said, this too is primarily just B-sides and, throwaways that they still just wanted to put on the album. There's actually, I think, 4 versions of this album. One specifically being, like, when it comes to album covers, like, there's 4, the album covers and just the album in itself. There's 4 versions of it, but there's, actually, no, I think there's 3, but then there's 4 versions of the album cover. And I'll be honest, I actually like the vinyl version of the album cover the most. But for this specific review, I'm just going to stick with the album cover I've been used to, which is it's a picture of a cat. It's a really cool picture. Actually, the artist that he took this album cover from, hold up. Oh, Lewis Wayne. Apparently, like, Lewis, from what I can remember when I researched this dude, Lewis Wayne, like, I think he had some type of particular mental condition of some sorts, but he just had an obsession with cats. And that's also another thing about Current 93 and David Tibet specifically. Like, he really likes cats. Like, he talks about cats a lot in a lot of his music. Along with a lot of other subject matters. There's a lot of multiple consistent themes in a lot of Current 93's music, and cats are one of them. And it's pretty funny. Like, there's even an album that I have not heard from Current 93. I'm not even sure if it's an album or just like a miscellaneous, like, alternative project, but I know it's on Current 93's Bandcamp, and there's also a picture of a cat, which I'm pretty sure is also from Lewis Wayne. And yeah, yeah, he definitely likes cats. So, again, when it comes to aspects of this album, some of the stuff that stands out to me, well, first of all, I'm just going to talk about my favorite songs from this album, and one of them being A Layman to Susan. Oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. Do, 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 like, that's just the melody that's playing all throughout the whole entire song, is on an acoustic guitar, I suppose, and I don't know, it's just so beautiful. Again, this is another really beautiful Current 93 song. Of course, like, it's somber, but like it's not freakish. It's very sadly beautiful, and it feels like it's talking about love. Somebody named Susan, and don't really know what this Susan represents to David specifically. This might be a person he actually knows, who really knows, because I know a lot of his music is really personal, because, as I go through this album, like, with Layman to Susan being one of my favorite Current 93 songs in general, and my favorite Current 93 songs off this album, this is actually a song I made a rendition out of when it comes to my personal, like, music, and CK Pitts, Chinese Kids Playing in the Snow. And I haven't released this song yet, but it is that song that plays at the end of all my videos, if you haven't noticed. So once I finish the project, because I have been working on this project called ode to Current 93 and David Tibet. And yeah, I can't wait to. I feel like by me even making these videos, I'm kind of forcing myself to like, all right, I gotta actually make this now because like finish it because I've proven to myself that I really love this band. And yeah, so yeah, honestly, like there's not really a lot of things else I can say about this album. Like, yeah, I can analyze this album as hard as I can analyze any Current 93 albums, but I'm just gonna stick to the main things that stick out to me. And yeah, like, so that song, I love that. Riverbank, it's an example of another song where it has a random woman singing in a very, like, angelic type of way. um, and it's pretty much uh, has aspects of Christianity in it again. Just very vague, kind of to a sense vague concepts of like religion, mysticism, hermeticism, and just kind of feels like this. I get a lot of isolation and loneliness from this specific album. This definitely is one of their more somber albums, and not to say that they don't have somberness in all aspects of their albums, but because since this is more light-hearted and like easier on the ears than most of their earlier stuff, like this is just like I would say this is diving into like more concepts that I feel like are a little bit more down to earth than most Current 93 music kit usually speaks upon. I feel like there are a lot of relatable topics on this album. But one of the most personal songs I've ever seen in general in my life was so to bring up another contemporary of David Tibet, within this culture, music, neo folk, industrial, British underground. This song is actually about Douglas P. from Death in June, and throughout all my Current 93 reviews, I've just always talked about Death in June a lot because they were very close collaborators, and Death in June is also a pretty prominent artist too, who's within the same era of like just neo folk. But also, I have stated a lot that Death in June is known for like their weird imagery that usually represents Nazism and anti-Semitic stuff. Though I don't think Douglas P is about that, but it still always has me wonder why David Tibet and Douglas P aren't friends anymore. And when I read the lyrics off of this specific song, I'm just like, because it's literally called A Song for Douglas After He's Dead. So it's literally saying like this is a song for Douglas P after he has died. And yeah, that's some pretty dark stuff. It's really, I mean, it's sad and somber when you listen to it, but the concept of it and the lyrics are really dark actually, mainly because they're just very personal about a relationship you have with someone that it seems that David is pointing out there's a lot of flaws in Douglas's mentality about who he is as a person and what he represents. And this is what makes me just sometimes, wonder what Douglas is really representing when it comes to like his imagery in Death in June. Because like he is, I'll read some of these lyrics because they were very poignant. Because like I've always, like, even before like I realized that they weren't friends anymore, I've always was just wondering, like, because I could tell that David Tibet has always said that he does not want to ever be considered a pompous person or try to make his music be represented in like a negative way, even though he knows it's crazy. Like he has stated that, like, yeah, he knows his music is out there, but he doesn't want it to like represent anything overtly negative. And sometimes, like, when it comes to Death in June, and like I said, when it comes to their latest album, it's a fucking picture of a Ku Klux Klan like statue, like, that's in red cloth. Like, it's really weird and just like, all right, yeah, they have some weird things with like comes to anti-Semiticism and racism or something like that, but still, again, Douglas P, apparently he is gay and he's Jewish. These are signs that shows that, yeah, he's probably not racist, like, anti-Semitic Nazi, but still, it's really hard to like decipher because like there is a lot of like debate over like Death in June's imagery, and I'm actually going, before I even review a Death in June album, I am going to do a lot of more research into Douglas P and like Death in June's music, because I actually have not listened to a lot of it yet. Like I've only listened to like their first album, Rose Clouds of Holocaust, and just little bits and pieces. Again, their music is really samey, so I feel like I'm always, I'm like, before I get into like some samey music, let me just like get more in tune with like other contemporaries of Death in June, and especially because it's just like, yeah, like who really knows what Douglas P is about? Again, like just more research will probably help. All right, he crouches on the floor. There's a mask on the wall, and he leafs through the pages of a book. But wait as he may in the shadow of other leaves, his heart embraces to times long. How's it going, guys? This is me from the future, and during editing process for Thunder Perfect Mind, I realized that the video must have paused again like it usually does during like the 23-minute mark area, and I thought like I got through it, or at least I thought I had made like an extra clip saying, kind of merging that last part that got cut out, but apparently I can't find it. And honestly, by the time I started actually editing it, it's already been like 3 days since probably I've done the editing for Thunder Perfect Mind, and it still has to come out, yeah, along with 2 other more. But overall, just kind of sum everything up as I was reading those lyrics. Thunder Perfect Mind, really good Current 93 album. Very long, but it's definitely one of their more monumentous outputs, in my opinion, based on how long it is and based on how much I feel like went into this particular album sonically and lyrically. Like there was definitely, less zaniness, but more emphasis on getting this particular imagery that I feel like for people who probably listen to them and don't listen to them or don't listen to this type of music, this is another good solid album that I feel like, almost anyone can enjoy. Not almost anyone, but I feel like a good few. But either way, Thunder Perfect Mind, Current 93, I like you. And with that said, I'm Trey, and I am out. Peace.
The odor of essence, and I double in pain as I flick through the past, arrayed in my mind in the room where a bed is. As I gripped in a bag, I'm gripping a hand as we're locked in